Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where you'll notice this is not where we left off. I know for a fact that I saved while we were falling, but it's possible that it actually doesn't allow a quick save while in that situation, I suppose. So maybe we'll have to rerun this. I mean, we know for a fact that this works, right? So maybe it's... I mean, I'm not going to say it's great. There's a possibility that we have a slightly different outcome. But all things considered, I mean, we may be able to land in water this time. So there's that. It's definitely something to consider. Let's see, how long is our burn time here? 263 seconds. I think I want to burn it, like, at the apoapsis, and I want this to be a burn time of that 263 seconds. So, how many minutes is that? I'm actually going to have to pull up a calculator here. Give me a moment. Calculator, 263 divided by 60 is 4.38 minutes. So, 0.38 times 60 is 22.8 seconds. So, 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Okay. That is helpful. So we're just going to burn this like so. I'm actually going to burn it a little bit longer than that. 3 minutes and like 40 seconds. Because I want to be able to utilize the engine in the craft itself as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and point towards that maneuver node. And I guess we'll bring this down again. I mean, for some reason, thought that I could save that, but now that I think about it, of course I'm not going to be able to save it while we're falling through the atmosphere like that. Of course that's not going to be a thing. So we're going to want to burn this at T minus 1 minute and 50 seconds, and that is A-okay. We're going to warp towards 1 minute 50, and we're going to give this a go here. Maybe we splash down in the water, and maybe we don't. It is completely random. We have no way of knowing what's under there. So we're going to burn this now. This is definitely a different approach that we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and deploy these air brakes as we did before, but notice that we're burning at the apoapsis this time. And that's in hopes of being able to burn off all of this fuel this time. But this is definitely, I think, the way to enter here. No doubt about it. So, yeah, that's going to fire there. That's completely okay. Our apoapsis is actually currently going up, which I think is vaguely entertaining, but our time to the apoapsis is decreasing. So that's good. I'm actually going to go pure retrograde here. I shouldn't be at the maneuver node. We're only using this for timing. In fact, we should probably be burning down this way a little bit to try to lower that periapsis back down. But that said, we're basically at the periapsis now, so the damage is done. Let's just burn off the horizontal speed, and I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with this as is. We are descending at this point, and we've still got a fair amount of burn time here. I do want to switch this to surface retrograde, though, at this point. And I think with a full burn here, we're going to be able to have all of these survive. So with just a slight adjustment here, I mean, maybe me completely spacing that you can't save in that situation is a blessing in disguise, but it was a mistake. And all things being ideal, we would not be trying this again. Like, even if we get a better outcome here, like, especially if we get a better outcome here, actually, that would be not ideal. I want exactly the same outcome. Unfortunately, that's not currently an option because I'm dumb, but we already knew that, so all is good. So we're just going to continue burning this, just giving ourselves the absolute best entry possible here. I really feel like aero braking for trying to bleed off horizontal speed in the Eve atmosphere is a big mistake. You should just try to drop in vertically as slowly as possible and let the atmosphere do the work. There's so much atmosphere between you and the ground anyway that this should be completely fine. We're already down below 2.3 kilometers per second. We're at like Kerbal orbital speed here. And we're going to be hitting the atmosphere now. Wonderful. We still have 100 seconds of burn here, and so I don't actually think we're going to get a full burn of this stage, now that I look at our current scenario. But we'll see. We are moving relatively slowly, and we're just going to continue to try to burn off as much as possible here. And our air brakes are at this point helping us as well. In fact, at this point, they should be causing a substantial amount of drag. They're a little off-center, yeah, because this is our last probe, but that's okay. And it is going to be this decoupler that fires, and then we'll switch over. Yes, our solar panels are going to burn off. Yes, that is fully expected. We've got a minute left of burn here. We'll see if our engine survives, and I am ready at this point to switch to the probe. But we're already moving at only 1.8 kilometers per second. I really feel like this is the correct way to enter. Yep, there go the photovoltaic panels. Look at those G-forces. Oh, wow. We are actually going to fully survive this. Insane. No heat shield. None at all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is heat shieldless entry into the Eve atmosphere. And this should be a safe landing, too. We could land this whole thing and be able to be in communications with this. Now, we're currently accelerating, and that's to be expected. I'm going to turn the SAS off here. No, I'm not. We're going to go retrograde. We're decelerating with the air brakes on. So, yeah, I think this is fine. Do we want to keep this whole thing? I mean, we really don't need to. We really, really don't need to. But this is definitely telling me a whole heck of a lot. Now, we are eventually going to run out of electric charge, but we have a lot of electric charge in this rechargeable battery bank. And we're going to be off the surface retrograde node a little bit, because this is off-center, right? Our aerodynamic drag forces are definitely pulling us off-center slightly. I'm interested in deploying this chute, like, right now. Just to see what this ends up being in terms of deployment speed. So I'm going to, well, we can't quick save here, right? Well, we can. I was actually able to quick save there. I don't know where that quick save previously went, but let's just go ahead and physics warp here. Oh man, I really hate physics warp. It does weird things. Oh, physics warp. But it's going to take forever to get this thing down to the ground. So I am going to physics warp this, but look at this terminal velocity with the parachute out and the air brakes. This is insane. And all we lost were the solar panels. And here I was expecting this entire assembly to be lost on that re-entry. But no, I really feel like this is the way to do it. I really, really do. Aerobraking in the Eve atmosphere, I feel like, is an exercise in futility for horizontal speed. Just do it for vertical. I wonder what this is going to be like when this deploys. That's what we're waiting on here. We can always fire up this decoupler right here once we know what this landing velocity is going to be like with this probe. We don't need a heat shield. It's irrelevant. It's a nice to have. Don't get me wrong. If you've got a big ol' heat shield, it'll work. But we don't need a heat shield if we've got enough delta V. We can just come into the atmosphere, do a bunch of aerobraking coming straight down, and have plenty of leeway. Look at our terminal velocity right now. 32 meters per second. Without the parachute deployed. Okay, it looks like we're coming down on land again. This is about ideal, actually. There goes the parachute. I'm going to not physics warp right now. I'm not liking what that's doing. 4 meters per second. We could actually keep this relay antenna on the surface, and this might be a good thing. This would give us a relay antenna right on the surface, right where we're planning on dropping our lander. No, I like this. I think this is good. This is a different situation, to be clear, than what we had in the previous attempt. And I'm not necessarily okay with that. And we're going to turn SAS off. Just drift down as you will. We don't need to be chipping into our power. We are never going to get additional power on this until we get engineers here. But we can power up this relay antenna and utilize that to communicate if we need to. It's a convenient thing to have in our back pocket as an option. It's getting off of Eve that is, at this point, the most concerning thing to me. I don't know how we're going to do that just yet. And man, this is going to take forever to drift to the ground. Should we undeploy the air brakes? What does that do to our speed? A whole lot of nothing. Okay. I mean, at this velocity, I would expect that the air brakes are not doing very much. What does this authority limiter do? I should figure that out sometime. But yeah, you can see here we're about 380 meters above the ground, moving down at 4.2 meters per second. We can't quick save right now, and I'm leery to physics warp because of the joint strength here. We're not going to have a problem with it, to be clear. Unless we physics warp, in which case we might. Yeah, look at that. That's 2x physics warp there. Look at that thing stretch. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I mean, we can give it a go. Whoa, no. I hate it. I hate it. 2x only. I'm not super comfortable with 2x, but we got to get down to the ground in a timely fashion. It's going to be another 25 seconds at 1x. Yeah. Going to be another 10. Okay, let's come out of physics warp. And let's see how this lands. This is probably going to put the relay antenna onto the ground, unless we roll it in some way, kind of like this. And essentially use these air brakes to hold us in place. Yeah, I really feel like that's the way to go when landing on Eve, if you've got the DV. It's getting off of Eve. That's going to be the question. How exactly are we going to do that? Now, sadly, we didn't get our splashdown. This is, once again, is this in Highlands? Where is this? This is Midlands. Is Midlands appropriate? Because if so, then we can delete some of our debris that are in the Highlands and just go for the Midlands. Because that is a reasonable location to land, I feel like. Volcanic rocks are in... No. Impact ejecta, highlands, or craters. Okay, so that's probably never going to be powered, that antenna. Noted. Okay. So, we need to think really, really hard about an ascent module. And what that would end up looking like. So, in terms of ascending through the atmo, I don't know how much DV we're going to need. In terms of orbital velocity on Eve is around 3 kilometers per second. So we need at least 3, assuming we're somehow able to teleport to the correct altitude. Perhaps 5 kilometers per second would be enough for ascension plus orbiting? That's something we're going to have to simulate for sure. So let's go ahead and put in our lander pod. That's going to be this guy. And we're going to need a few things on it for sure. I think we're going to some degree, ditch the unified module that we were planning before and kind of start over from scratch. We've learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to work. All that we're going to have on this vehicle is going to be a storage module for science. So we're going to need... What am I looking for here? For some reason, I never notice the storage module in the ReStock mod. And I don't know why. Well, they did change it, but for some reason, I just always skip right on over it. That's it right there, of course. Now, in terms of descent, we're maybe going to have a different system. Well, we could descend this like quasi-empty. We'll come to that in a moment. I think that we will go ahead and definitely have on this, just to be on the safe side, we will have on here something along the lines of a Mark 16 parachute, which should be plenty to land this. I'm also going to put in 2 drogue chutes. This will be repacked, and this thing will be probably refueled in orbit or something like that, and then this will re-enter with just this, pretty much, on Kerbal. So then we'll have a couple of drogue chutes to help us out with that re-entry. Those can be repacked, no problem. And how many Kerbals go in here? 3. Perfect. Okay. We'll want a heat shield on here. This heat shield is not super useful, but it's going to be for re-entry onto Kerbal, not re-entry into Eve. We'll have a decoupler. And that'll be a TD-12. Excellent. This is what we're returning to Kerbal. Then, we're going to need like 5,000 Delta V and enough thrust to put this into orbit around Eve, which is going to be complicated. We'll put a KER on there, because that'll be very, very helpful for us. And then we'll have, say... I would like to have, like, expendable fuel tanks. So we would have maybe, like, a big orange tank. That'll be interesting, for sure. And then that would be powered by, like, a mainsail. Is this... What is the thrust to weight of this on Eve? This does not lift. That is very exciting. Yeah, that's extremely exciting. That a mainsail isn't powerful enough for this. We could upgrade it to a mammoth. That would do the trick. That's plenty of thrust to weight. We could add a bunch more fuel onto this. Now, we're going to want to be dropping this probably empty, because I have no idea what these parachutes are going to be like, in all honesty. That's going to be interesting. We're going to need to simulate that. And we're going to need... What size is this? Kerbadine? Not Oscar B, I can tell you that. Not Rockamax. What size am I looking for? This guy? No. What diameter is the mammoth? I forget. So, it's in here somewhere, I can tell you that, but maybe we don't have the tech for it yet? I suppose that's possible. What if instead we did have that big orange tank, and instead of running the single engine, we put an engine plate on here? I believe that's under coupling? Yeah, we put an engine plate under here. And we put in... What size are vectors in comparison to this? Is quad vector going to be an appropriate size? That's not going into the node that I'm looking for there. That is. I wouldn't exactly call that appropriately sized. That does have the thrust to weight we're looking for. Okay. And then we would do something along the lines of, like, quad-coupled additional tanks. We have to be careful of this thrust to weight, to be sure. But we would have something along the lines of quad-coupled additional tanks. Out over... I'm going to turn snapping on. Out over here. What size of tanks? Like, I'm pretty sure we're not going to lift 4 more Jumbo 64s. That would have to go up here. Yeah, that's not going to lift. But maybe we could get away with 32s. What's that weight looking like? 1.16. That's a little low, to be sure. We could onion stage this in an awkward fashion. Do, like, octocouple on, like, T800s. That would lift, and then we'd run the fuel duct in like this. That didn't want to go. The fuel duct in like this. I mean, I almost feel like that would work. Another set of T800s out here. It's a very short burn duration. That gets us 3,000... Well, that gets us 4,222 DV, but not over Eve here. In total, this one is the total Delta V, right? I'm pretty sure this is the total Delta V number here. So that gets us about 3K. I do not believe this is sufficient to get us into orbit, to be clear. That is a very, very intense requirement. There's no doubt about that. This is going to be complicated. I mean, we're going to be pretty inefficient at the beginning, but as we lift off, it will get substantially better. Once we get into vacuum, this is 5K Delta V over Eve. So that's something to think about as well. We could maybe slap on some additional T400s up here. Now, I don't like our connection point, to be clear. This is going to cause this to swing like up this way, and then they'll get pushed in by the Eve atmosphere. I think that's a real bad idea. But I'm just playing around with thrust to weight and DV right now. This barely lifts off the ground. Right here. Not sure what that Mach slider is for. I don't think it's actually helpful in this situation. I think that's more for spaceplane type things. Dealing with drag, that sort of thing. Now, one thing we should probably do is make sure that we have some sort of adapter here. That's the term I'm looking for. And we want to do maybe this one. Is that correct? No. But that gets us started, actually. And then I think it was this one. Okay, does that lift? No, this does not lift initially. This will have to burn off some fuel before it lifts. So we could downgrade these T400s at this point to T200s. Another option is that we can stick some supporting engines on here. I don't like that option because these engines are pretty heavy. Like, what is the weight of a Vector? A Vector is 4 tons. So that's definitely something to consider. Like, our thrust to weight on Kerbin here is going to be very high, but Eve is a whole different story. So we're going to call this the Eve Ascent module, and we'll save that. And this is 1.07 thrust to weight here, so this technically does lift off. We really, really should run a test, and I'm going to pop these off of here, and I'm going to move these up. And then we'll pop these on, and then we will take this off. Like, we'll do something like this. Put these on here. Put this on here. And then we'll run some strutting here. We probably want to move this down a little bit, though. So we move, not this part. We move this part down to be somewhere around here. Now, this is probably going to end up landing empty, I think. And I don't want these fuel ducts to necessarily be there. We'll move them... Actually, we'll just straight up rerun those. And they'll go in like there. I'm a little concerned about a gravity turn on this thing, I'm not going to lie. Do we land on air brakes? That's an interesting concept. What is the impact velocity of these? 8 meters per second. So then we land with these deployed at, like, say... That's what the authority limiter does. At, like, say, 20 degrees or so? Like that? We could actually have it pitch and yaw as well. So then, when we actually lift off, then we retract them, which streamlines them like so. Now, they would be used for landing, and then they'd be ditched as we ascend. It's an interesting theory. I think it's one that we will test in the next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I'll see you all next time.